My name is Olivia Parker, and if you saw me today, sitting in my corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, you'd probably think I've always had it together. Perfectly tailored silk blouse, subtle diamond studs, a pair of nude heels resting under my desk. From the outside, I look composed, successful, untouchable, even. But what no one sees is the silence I carry with me. Silence where my family's voices used to be. Silence where love once filled the air. This morning, as I sipped my coffee, dark roast with just a splash of oat milk, my phone buzzed. The name flashing across the screen made my hand freeze midair. Daniel Parker. My husband. Or rather, the man who once promised forever, then handed my life's work to my brother like it was a birthday gift. 2 years. That's how long it's been since I cut contact. 2 years since I walked away from the man who called me a failure in front of the very people I loved most. My pulse quickened. I could feel the faint smudge of lipstick on my coffee cup as I set it down, staring at his message. We need to talk. It's urgent. I laughed under my breath, but it wasn't out of humor. It was the sharp, bitter kind of laugh that comes from wounds that never fully heal. Part of me wanted to delete the message and move on. Another part, the part that still remembers the sting of betrayal, knew this conversation was inevitable. 2 years ago, my life unraveled in a single evening. It was supposed to be a celebration. My father had just retired, and the family was gathered at the Parker estate, the same place where birthdays, graduations, and anniversaries had been toasted under the crystal chandelier. I had been preparing for this moment for years. I studied business, shadowed my father, and poured myself into learning every corner of our family company. I believed, naively, that hard work and loyalty would be enough. But that night, Daniel, my husband, stood beside my brother, Michael, with a glass of champagne raised high. His voice rang out with confidence, "To the future of Parker and Company. My brother-in-law, Michael, will be leading us into the next era." The room erupted with applause. My hands turned cold. I remember staring at him, my chest tightening as though someone had just punched the air out of me. "Michael," I whispered, my throat dry. "You gave the company to Michael?" Daniel's smile didn't falter. He leaned in close, his words like knives. "Olivia, you've always had ideas, but you don't have what it takes to run a company. You're too emotional. You'd ruin it." Too emotional. A failure. That's what he saw when he looked at me. Not the nights I spent studying spreadsheets. Not the years I sacrificed. Not the dreams I carried. Just a woman, his wife, he could dismiss. I remember my grandmother's bracelet brushing against my wrist as I clenched my trembling hands. She'd given it to me when I was 16, a delicate silver band engraved with a simple phrase, "Know your worth." That night, those words felt heavier than the diamond ring on my finger. I looked around the room, at my father, too tired to argue, at my brother, too eager to accept the throne handed to him, and at my husband, standing tall like a savior who had rescued the family business from me. My heart broke in silence, but somewhere deep inside, something else sparked. A quiet defiance. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I simply stood, the chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor, and said the only words I could find. "If I'm such a failure, you'll never see me try again." I walked out of that glittering room, past the champagne and the applause, into the cold night air. And for the first time in my life, I had nothing, no plan, no support, no family, no husband. Only my grandmother's bracelet pressing into my skin, reminding me of the truth I hadn't yet claimed. Know your worth. The night I left my family's estate, I checked into a small studio apartment on the edge of Brooklyn. It smelled faintly of old paint and dust, and the radiator rattled like it was on its last breath. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. For the first time in years, the silence in the room belonged to me, not to the people who told me I wasn't enough. At first, the loneliness was unbearable. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, wondering if Daniel was right. Maybe I really was too emotional, too fragile to carry something as heavy as a company. My hands would shake as I scrolled through rejection emails. Investors weren't interested. Banks laughed at my loan applications. Even friends I thought I could count on avoided my calls. But then, one morning, I slipped on my grandmother's bracelet before leaving for a networking event. I almost didn't go. I felt out of place, broken, stripped of everything I once had. Yet that small silver band felt like armor. That's where I met Evelyn Hart, a sharp, seasoned woman in her 50s who ran her own consulting firm. She was the kind of woman who didn't flinch under pressure, who looked at me, not through me. Over lukewarm coffee in plastic cups, she listened to my idea for a sustainable retail brand. Unlike Daniel, she didn't laugh. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and said, "It's risky, but you've got something. I'll mentor you if you're willing to bleed for it." And I did bleed. Not literally, but in every way that mattered. I worked 16-hour days, balancing part-time gigs just to pay rent while pouring every extra dollar into building my brand. I taught myself graphic design through free YouTube tutorials. I hand-packed shipments from my tiny apartment, labeling boxes until my fingers were raw. The first 6 months were brutal. There were nights when I cried over a bowl of instant noodles, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. But then came the first email from a stranger, my first real customer. And then another. And another. I remember shipping that first order with trembling hands, slipping a handwritten note inside the box. "Thank you for believing in me." Slowly, word spread. My designs caught the attention of a small eco-conscious boutique in Soho. The owner gave me a chance, and within weeks, my products were selling out faster than I could keep up. For the first time, I wasn't Daniel's wife or Michael's sister. I was Olivia Parker, the founder of Something Real. But I kept it quiet. I posted modest updates online, nothing flashy. My family assumed I was barely scraping by, and I let them. It was easier that way. My success was mine alone, not something they could dismiss or take away. By the end of the first year, I'd moved from that cramped studio into a proper office space in downtown Manhattan. It wasn't huge, but it had glass walls, clean white desks, and sunlight that spilled across polished floors. Standing there, with Evelyn by my side, I realized something. Daniel had been right about one thing. I was too emotional. But he'd underestimated me. My emotions weren't a weakness. They were my fire. And they were building something no one could ever steal from me again. 2 years later, I thought I had buried the past for good. But life has a cruel way of circling back. It was a Thursday morning when my assistant knocked on my office door. "Miss Parker," she said softly, "there are visitors here to see you. They say it's family." For a moment, my chest tightened. Family. That word felt foreign now. Still, I straightened my silk blazer, smoothed my hair, and told her to let them in. When the glass doors opened, I saw them, Daniel, Michael, and even my father trailing behind them. They walked into my office like they expected to find me in some modest corner, barely surviving. But instead, they stepped into a space that spoke louder than words. The walls were adorned with contemporary art pieces, subtle, elegant, each one chosen carefully. A large window framed the Manhattan skyline, the morning sun spilling gold over the polished oak conference table. My company's logo, etched in steel, glimmered on the wall behind my desk. Every detail whispered success. They froze. For a long moment, no one spoke. I simply watched them, sipping my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Michael finally broke it. "Olivia, this is yours?" His voice cracked in disbelief. "Yes," I replied smoothly, setting my cup down. "All mine. Built from the ground up." Daniel's jaw tightened. He tried to mask a shock with that same smug expression I used to know so well. "You've done well for yourself," he muttered, glancing around. But his eyes betrayed him. Darting to the awards displayed on the shelf, the framed magazine cover with my face on it, the numbers glowing on the investor report pinned to the wall. My father sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. He looked older, wearier than I remembered. "Olivia," he whispered, "we had no idea." I leaned forward, folding my hands. My grandmother's bracelet caught the light, and for the first time in years, I didn't hide it. "Of course you didn't. None of you asked." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, but I didn't let him speak. You all assumed I would fall apart, that without the family business, I'd crumble. But here's the truth. Losing everything you took from me was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to find out who I really am. The silence was deafening. I could feel their shame thick in the air. I stood, walking to the glass wall, letting them take in the panoramic view of the city. You gave my brother the company I spent my life preparing for. And you, Daniel, my voice hardened as I turned to him, you told me I was a failure, that I was too emotional, that I wasn't capable. He swallowed, his bravado crumbling. Olivia, I didn't mean. Yes, you did. My words cut clean. And I believed you. For one night, I believed you. But then I remembered who I am. I walked back to my desk, opening a drawer, and pulled out a glossy portfolio. I slid it across the table toward them. Here's the truth. My company is valued at 5 times what Parker & Company is today. I don't just run a business. I run an empire. And I did it without you. Michael's face went pale. My father's hands trembled. Daniel's eyes darted to the papers, then back to me, as if trying to comprehend what he was seeing. I sat back down, calm and steady. So tell me, I said softly, who's the failure now? No one answered. The silence in that glass office was sweeter than any applause I'd ever heard. I let the silence linger, letting them squirm in the weight of it. For years, I had been the one left small, cornered, silenced. But now the roles had shifted. My father was the first to speak. His voice was frail, almost breaking. Olivia,
I didn't protect you when I should have.
I let them decide for you. If I could take it back. I raised a hand gently, stopping him. You can't take it back, Dad. But you can move forward differently. My tone was firm, but not cruel. If you want a relationship with me again, it has to be built on respect. No more dismissing me because I'm your daughter and not your son.
I need you to see me for what I am.
Not fragile. Not incapable. Just Olivia. He nodded, his eyes glistening, shame written deep into his lines. Then I turned to Michael. He was shifting uncomfortably in his chair, like the spotlight was too hot to handle. Michael, I said, my voice steady, you've always been handed things. First from Dad. Then from Daniel. You never had to earn it. But if you want my support now, it won't come free. You need to build something of your own. No shortcuts, no handouts. Until then, we have nothing to discuss professionally. He opened his mouth, but closed it again when he saw the conviction in my eyes. For once, he was speechless. Finally, I faced Daniel, my ex-husband, the man who'd cut me down with words sharper than knives. He was staring at me, jaw tight, pride and regret warring in his expression. Daniel, I began slowly. You call me a failure. And for a long time, I let that voice live inside me. But I need you to hear me clearly now. I don't need your approval, your validation, or your protection. Not anymore. I leaned in, my voice soft but unshakable. If you want forgiveness, it won't be easy. You'll have to confront the arrogance that made you believe you had the right to decide my worth. You'll have to do the work to unlearn the man you've been. Until then, you and I are nothing but strangers who once shared a name. His lips parted as if to argue, but no words came. For once, Daniel Parker had no control. I stood, letting the sunlight catch on my bracelet. These are my conditions. Respect. Responsibility.
Change.
Not because I need anything from you, but because those are the only terms on which I allow anyone back into my life. They sat in silence, the weight of my words pressing down like stone. I could see it, the slow realization, the cracks forming in their certainty. And for the first time, I felt it too.
Power.
Not the cruel, controlling kind, but the kind born from survival, growth, and truth. The days that followed weren't magical. No one transformed overnight. But small changes began to show. My father started calling me once a week, not to lecture or ask for favors, but simply to listen. He'd tell me about the garden he was tending, or ask about the latest book I was reading. For the first time in my life, he treated me like an equal, not just his daughter. Michael, to my surprise, took my words seriously. I heard he was working late nights at a small startup, no family name attached, no safety net. It wasn't easy for him, but maybe for the first time, he was learning what it meant to build, not inherit. And Daniel kept his distance. He sent a letter once, handwritten, shaky. He said he was in therapy, confronting the pride that had blinded him. I didn't write back. Some wounds take longer to heal, and some doors stay closed. As for me, I thrived. My company grew beyond anything I once dreamed of. Yet the real victory wasn't the office, or the skyline view, or the awards on my shelf. It was standing in front of the mirror, fastening my grandmother's bracelet and finally understanding what those words meant. Know your worth. That silver band had carried me through humiliation, loneliness, and struggle. Now it rested on the wrist of a woman who had reclaimed her life. One evening, as I locked at my office, I paused by the glass wall and looked out over the city lights flickering against the dark. 2 years ago, I walked away from everything familiar with nothing but shattered pride and a piece of jewelry. Today, I had everything I needed because I finally had myself. I smiled softly, whispering words only for me. I wasn't a failure. I was just unfinished.